All right, we just turned 12 o'clock here Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Want to thank everybody for joining us. People are rolling in. If you want to hit us in the chat, let us know that you can hear us. That would definitely help. Welcome, everyone. All right. We're going to give everybody 2 more minutes. I'll start with a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to jump right into it. We have a super technical webinar presentation for everybody today. It's on the Inflation Reduction Act and some renewable energy policies. So we'll give everyone just a few more minutes. Okay. Thank you, Sue Bradley, for saying you can hear us. Sounds like we're all set and everyone can hear us. One more. We'll give about 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Now, everybody feeling okay? Eat too much Halloween candy this year? I know I did. That's been the general consensus amongst most people. So hopefully that sugar rush will keep us going for an hour. All right. Okay, we're going to kick it off. John, you ready to get started? All right. All right, we're going to get it kicked off. People are still rolling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started because we do have a lot of material. So we are tri-merit, especially tax professionals. You know, most of you joining us probably know us, been in business for 15 years, specializing in specialty tax, and now a whole new world starting with the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Few housekeeping items. As the chat said, yes, the slides will be sent and available to you after the webinar. It is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube, or let us know if you want a recording afterwards. If you have any questions, we are going to highly encourage questions. So we know some of these are, updated policies, new policies. So for all of our CPA channel partners out there, if there's something specific you want to know, please use the Q&A for that and not the chat. So with the Q&A, we'll collect all those afterwards and try to get those questions answered for you. And it'll really help us to shape, what is on your mind? What are you seeing? What are some of the, questions that you want to have answered? We are offering CPE credits for this. So there's going to be 4 polling questions. You got to answer 3 out of the 4 to get CPE. You got to stay with us for 50 minutes. And we will send these certs out after the show. So that's all the housekeeping we needed to get started. This is the title, Renewable Energy Production and Investment Tax Credits. That's what we're going to jump in today. We're going to talk about some practical applications, small and mid-sized businesses. And then here's our team. We have myself, Barry Devine. I've been doing specialty tax credits for about 17 years and been working, with John Capral for just about all 17 of those years, on and off different firms. But John and I have been, extremely good friends and colleagues through the industry, and I enjoy working with John. We have Randy Burge, who actually had a laptop crash, so he's going to be trying to get it fixed with IT and join us. If not, we'll be going through his slides. So I'm going to turn it over. John, can you introduce yourself really quickly?
Great. Thanks, Barry. And thanks, everyone, for being here with us today. We think you're going to enjoy this. Honestly, it's quite interesting. And there's a lot of history to it, a lot of background, and what's brought us here today. And what we're hoping that you take away from this is that you see the potential, the opportunities for yourselves if you are looking at some of these incentives and credits, and also for your clients, mainly for their businesses and opportunities they'll have to increase their energy self-sufficiency, energy independence, energy security, and help with their rising electricity costs. And so that's a lot of the theme of the Inflation Recovery Act of 2022. There are other things in it. Barry will get into some of that before we begin the energy credits analysis. That's really the focus today for that reason. My background briefly is, yes, I've been in this industry, incentives and credits, 17 years. I have picked up experience with renewable energy out of self-interest and being interested in the subject. And I've worked along the ways doing due diligence for large wind projects. I actually was a contractor with the Department of Energy in their commercialization area. And then later in accounting firms working in clean tech practices. And so I couldn't be more pleased with the evolution of this state of where we are today. So Barry, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to give a quick overview. John, like you said, is going to go into some of the nuts and the bolts of the credits. And then Randy, if he joins, Randy is more, he's worked a lot with the tech transfer, tech incubators. He's going to talk more about the ecosystem of what industries are effective, what does the marketplace look like, and what are the relationships between the government, the industries, the CPA, your clients, and Tri-Merit. So hopefully he'll jump on to do that. If not, we're going to cover his slides if his laptop can recover. But that's basically the overview. So I am going to start with, so as we were putting this together, we were like, well, where are we in the universe? Like, what are we talking about? You're just going to say energy. What does that mean? Or tax credit, production credit, investment tax credit. A lot of this is going to come out of the Inflation Reduction Act. So very quickly, I just wanted to start with an overview of what the government has in this bill. So basically, they're saying there's a deficit reduction because they're having revenue and spending. So the total spend is going to be 437 billion, but we're going to be collecting, what they say they're going to be collecting is 737 billion. And on the right here in the little bubbles, you can see 15% corporate minimum tax rate, the loss limitation, excise tax, and then the IRS enforcement and funding net revenue. We know that they're going to spend $52 billion on new personnel. It's going to be modernization, and it will be new agents, but they're just putting a lot of money into the IRS and enforcement, and they're assuming to collect $124 billion through that effort. And so the savings part comes in taxes, healthcare, energy, and climate. On the spending side, which what we want to discuss today, it's broken into three categories: healthcare, energy, and climate. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. If I break down, and there's a lot of words on this slide, got it, just stay with me for a second. So under the IRA, if you look at energy and climate provisions, this is basically the table of contents under that one section. So today, clean energy credits, there's production credits. John is going to touch on section 45. Investment tax credits, there's section 48. There's 48E, which is going to happen in a few years. So we're going to wait on that. So John's going to talk about 48 and 48C, advanced energy product credit. So as you can also see, there's fuel credits, clean vehicle credits, carbon, residential, goes all the way over to some community investment in energy justice, permitting process, financing, and then there's an agriculture and forestry program. So under climate and provisions, that is what the IRA laid out. Now we're going to drill down a little bit to 45 and 48. So I'm going to turn it over to John, and he's going to do an intro, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, again, thank you, Barry.
Yep.
So you could see that there is quite a bit of change and extension in the Inflation Recovery Act. We are going to focus again on primarily these three sections. Section 45, the electricity produced from certain renewable resources. That's the production tax credit, or the PTC. And then there are two ITCs we're going to also address. One is the general energy credit under section 48, the investment tax credit for renewable energy, and also 48 cap C, which is very interesting for a number of reasons that we'll get into shortly. The advanced energy project credit. They're distinguishable, and we'll learn more about that as we go through the material. But primarily, these three areas are the main reliances that you and your clients will be looking to when exploring renewable energy, whether it's in their business or perhaps in their residential investment properties, or if they're actually developing, designing, and manufacturing renewable energy products and processes and such. So we'll talk about that as we get into the material. The point, the goal, primarily we'll want to remember, no, that's all right, is when we're looking at the Inflation Recovery Act and the renewable energy provisions, what came to me after reviewing, reading, and diving into it a bit is that essentially what we have here in front of us is what I would say is last mile incentivization toward a distributed grid, a decentralized grid. That has been the holy grail for decades. And to read through these provisions and this act, and where that became very apparent, I got more excited about being able to bring this together and share it with our CPA clients and their clients. Barry?
Yep. I'm going to launch polling question 1 here. All right, polling question 1. Failed to launch. Okay. Can I not do this in? Okay, it is not allowing me to. Maybe I can't be in presenter mode. No, failed to launch. Okay. Polling question 1. Yep.
Barry, I was like, what we
Yep.
can do is if these polling questions won't launch, we can
Okay.
just put them in the chat and then just have people answer in the chat. And we'll
Okay.
just count that way.
I can do that. And here's John's first question. A 200 horsepower combustion engine car is the equivalent of an electric vehicle rated at, make your choice. So I will put them in the chat. I will put this in the chat, but I can't copy and paste it.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I undid the screen share. Okay, we're gonna figure that one out. We're gonna move on. And we're gonna make sure we have that figured out by poll question number 2. And we'll make sure everybody gets their CPE credit for that as well. John, do you want to give insight of that answer or should we wait? Did you want to?
I believe that Jack is working on it. There
Yeah.
we go. I see it.
Yep.
You see it? Okay.
I see it.
To launch.
Yep. Everyone for the polls, when it comes time for the poll questions, if everyone could just post still here when Barry asks about the poll questions, that'll
Yep.
be how we acknowledge that everyone's still here and around. So we'll just say everyone's still here and that'll count.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you, everyone.
Ashley, Tova, Jennifer. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay, John, take it over and we'll figure it out.
All right, great, thanks.
Right. Thank you.
So now to pick up where I just left off, this idea of the last mile of deployment on a grid scale of renewables, we're just at the beginning of that, and we have been for a while. What we're looking at again are the 2 primary types of incentives and credits you're going to find. One is for producing electricity from renewable energy. So we're not necessarily producing renewable energy per se. We're producing, in general, a carrier of power. Electricity being one, gasoline is a good analogy of another carrier. In other words, we don't buy gasoline just to have it and store it. We use it. We put it in our vehicles so we can go from point A to B. Electricity is the same. We need to generate, and this is how a grid works. We need to generate the electricity using power. Typically, it's historically been coal, natural gas, some oil, very little, and nuclear. Now, in recent years, we've greatly expanded our renewable energy capacities to use renewables to generate electricity. Why are we doing that? So we can take that electricity, that power, transmit it over distances and use it to put our lights on, run our computers, keep our houses warm or cold. And so that's the whole idea here of a grid, is to generate this power, this electricity, using these sources of energy so that we can use it in applications, okay? And so now what we've historically used have been fossil fuels. Where we're now able to use renewables. I lost the screen there, Mary. There we go. So now we're able to use renewables in the grid to create that electricity. That's been very expansive and to a degree, though, limited, because you can't simply convert a coal-fired plant to renewables, wind or solar. So you feed into it. And that's what historically has, how this grid integration has occurred. Renewables are generated in what you would call utility grade facilities, solar arrays, wind farms, the most recognizable, also hydropower in the Northeast and the Northwest particularly. And so you're able to generate renewables, plug them into the grid, and then distribute them. And so that's been really, really big part of getting us to integrate renewables into our power needs. And so what these producers who are not the utility companies are able to do is they can get a tax credit for that. They can get a tax credit for producing that electricity. And so they're putting together, and have been for many years, or investments in wind farms, solar arrays in particular. And these have been supplemented by tax equity investors and certain tax credits. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what tax credits have been available and what going forward has now become even greater, created greater potential for these off-grid producers of renewable energy. So the main thing is it's gone from a 5-year period that these producers could take a tax credit. They can now take that for 10 years. Very substantial change. The rate dropped, but it actually is maintaining as long as the producer follows certain rules. One would be using apprenticeships or companies that have apprenticeship programs and pay fair wages along with, in accordance with, prevailing wage laws. And so there are jobs connected to this bill as well. And that is something that is become very prominent in this use of taxpayer funds, not only to create cleaner, less expensive energy, but to provide good jobs to supplement that. There's actually, even in certain areas that have been deemed to be energy communities, a bonus credit. This would be places like West Virginia, where coal has traditionally been mined. You're welcome, Senator Manchin. And so there are a great deal of a web of additional supplemental benefits that you'd want to look at, your clients would want to look at. And so that's one of the things is the realization, the understanding that these rules now have expanded. They now go through, as long as your construction begins before 2025. So we've got years of runway here. And the interesting thing here now, this is actually scaled down. And the reason for that is because these credits are, not only can you use them, you can transfer them. That's brand new. You can actually transfer your production credits, meaning you can sell them on a market. And so that is a big advantage, because now tax equity is not the only avenue to pursue to put together these types of deals. If, for instance, as an example, let's say you've got a ranch in an arid location where maybe you're having issues with drought and water. You may convert your ranch land into a solar array and get production tax credits for 10 years from that. You can certainly look at that as a viable opportunity, and this is not needing to be done on scale, on utility grade scale. These are utility grade facilities that you can build and construct, but because the costs have come down and these supplemental benefits now are so substantial, you can actually put an investment group together. If you've got the land and the group of people who can do this, your clients can use land that maybe has gone fallow or they're not able to use for other purposes. They can put a wind farm, a solar array, things of that nature. So this is one of the ideas of how this has become a much more decentralized or distributed grid, and that is very important for energy security. You know, if you have a catastrophic event, a hurricane, it's not going to knock out your grid because your grid is now in multi places, multi locations. Not only are your own energy needs being served, you're actually able to provide energy up into the grid or to your community. And so these are very important things to see and understand that are in this IRA bill that are different and new. And so this is not unreachable by smaller landowners, investors, businesses to create a production scale renewable energy facility. The one thing is, though, you cannot use that energy. You have to sell it to a third party. That's a requirement, has been in the past. And so as long as you're able to meet those requirements and you're otherwise qualified, this is quite a lucrative opportunity for you if you've been seeing maybe your farm or your ranch receding in due to drought and such. Next slide, Barry.
Okay. John, I think I fixed the polling question.
All right. If
No,
you'd like to go back,
I did
and
not
do that, or we can just continue going forward.
Oh no, go ahead. Please
All
continue.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the production tax credit. You get 10 years, file it with your tax return. You get the credit to offset your taxes. If you do not have enough tax appetite, you can also sell that credit and there will be markets that are going to develop. We've already talked to tax equity folks. They are looking into this and how this is going to happen, and it is imminent now that we've got these new avenues of financing. So now let's talk more about the energy credit. This is Section 48. It's been around a while, at least since the early 90s. And the idea here now is this works like the old investment tax credits. You make a purchase for your business, you get an X amount factor, and that is between between 2 and 30%. And again, that depends on that prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. Also, being able to offset your income tax because it's a credit, a general business credit. In addition, it's a specified credit. So if your business is in AMT for any reason, you can use these credits as well as the production credits, the 45 PTC and the 48 ITC, to offset your AMT. But again, the investment tax credit, the energy credit under Section 48 can also be sold on a market, and you can monetize your credits even if you're not profitable or you have excess credits. So the types of energy equipment, energy facilities, I'm going to start at the top here. I put the new on top, and the reason for that is you'll see why that is the case very quickly. So this is new. The idea that you can get an ITC for energy storage, batteries, microgrid controllers. Interconnection property. I'm going to group those three, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what that is, what that means, and why this is significant. So these are brand new. These have not been able to qualify for the ITC in the past. The reason it's part of today's bill and today's law is because this is public policy to push us, give us that additional tailwind into decentralized energy, renewable energy generation, a distributed grid. Again, saying that that was the holy grail decades ago, we're on the cusp of achieving that. And these incentives and credits will certainly help accelerate that. In part, the equipment didn't exist to do this effectively. It could be done on a utility grade scale. It could be done on with fossil fuels. It's been more complex and challenging with renewables, but what's happened in the time that this has become a focus is new and improved products, new equipment, new semiconductors, new ideas, and that's continuing. And so you see the complement to these ITCs in the renewable energy space are the R&D tax credits. I've done numerous R&D tax credit studies over the last 6 or 7 years in renewable energy, and it is remarkable how heavy those are in R&D and how much we are still learning, even though solar has been with us, for instance, for 30 or 40 years. It seems commonplace, but we're only starting to get to some of the more interesting elements, the efficiencies, getting the panels to be more efficient, using different components, combining components. In this case, energy storage, your batteries, your microgrid controllers, which are able, very complex, sophisticated equipment to help you work with the grid and talk with the grid and know when you need to access the grid, for instance, in your business, and know when you can perhaps feed up into the grid if you've generated excess energy. This is all interesting, should be all interesting to you as businesses and as advisors to companies that are going to be looking at these opportunities in the near future and what kind of incentives are available. Remember, up to a 30% credit for the costs of these expenditures, which have come down greatly in the last 20 years. And so not only are they more affordable, the supplement is just a wonderful incentive to get companies to be looking at this. And again, here's an example. I'll talk a little bit about it. An example, a real example. So there's a national chain of grocery stores, and they had a particular problem in one of their locations, and they wanted to learn how to better manage this, and it became a scaled solution. And so what they did was they were able to come up with a plan for a microturbine to be placed on their roof, actually 2 of them. Microturbine, what that is it's a very very efficient and sophisticated diesel generator, in effect. The old diesel generator that you crank up when you had a power outage for a half a day or so, or during a here in California, earthquakes and hurricanes in the east. This would be live and die by these kinds of things. Microturbines are all that, but even more reliable, efficient, and can be designed in a way where they can supplement power needs during peak periods, for instance, or they can provide that backup. As I said, in this example, it's a grocery store chain. They've got needs where they've got to keep their food fresh, cold, frozen. They can't tolerate power outages. And so a microturbine solution worked great for them. Not only can that microturbine solve their problem, that microturbine could be connected to the grid using controllers and interconnectivity and battery storage devices to make it so that they can actually contribute to the grid, take some of the stress and strain off of the grid, and keep in mind, the grid is 50, 60 years old at this point, and there are fails all over the country. We've had them here in California with wildfires and being identified as a cause by having grid problems, just dated, needing maintenance. And so by decentralizing, we're taking a tremendous amount of strain off, and we're providing security for our own businesses, our own selves, so that we're not going to suffer these power outages, which can be very expensive. So that's where you can look at, well, how could my client do this? Are they just going to get a cheaper energy bill? They'll get that, yes, because they're generating some of their own power using renewables, but they'll also potentially have income stream from that. They'll also potentially have the ability to take these substantial investment tax credits when they're designing, developing, and installing these devices. And this can be crossed over between solar, wind, geothermal. It doesn't matter as long as it's renewable, meets the other requirements, and you can find yourself in a position where you're saving on your electricity bills at a time when they're just rising rapidly, and even questioning concerns about security when we're being challenged by overseas wars and decisions to reduce production, to perhaps try to affect the energy market on a macro level. We're decentralized. Our distributed grid, decentralized energy system is nascent, but growing. These incentives and credits will help that continue. So looking at that again, as I mentioned, it's also the energy credit, the regular energy credit, it's also transferable. You also do need to take a basis reduction because this is a depreciable asset or assets. However, the bonus here is you're only required to take a 50% reduction of your ITC. So you're getting that additional depreciation bonus on top of the ITC. And on top of the ITC being monetizable very easily. Barry?
Yep.
Next slide.
All right, polling question 2. So I'm just gonna put one in the chat and you can answer it or say still here. I just said, have you taken an investment tax credit? Say still here. This is what I did say, allow panelists to participate. So, but the other question was, if a taxpayer has unused acreage and it can be used to build a commercial solar array, which energy general business credit can they qualify for? The PTC, the ITC, can they do both or both and must select only one? John, you want to give the answer really quickly?
Sure, let me share that answer. So it's an either or with the PTC, the production tax credit, or one of the ITCs. That's first. So if, and again, generally, it can be more lucrative to take the ITC, especially, I mean, the PTC, especially with the 10-year life of the credit. You can take it over 10 years. So that's going to work out in many cases better. But if you want to get the cash up front and you have other investment needs and goals, then the ITC makes perfect sense. If you don't want to be part of managing the sale, don't forget, it has to be sold to a third party. You can't use that yourself. And your goal is more to supplement your grid power and to have a backup to your grid power, then you're probably you're definitely gonna need to go the ITC route. So yes, you can qualify for both energy or advanced energy, depending on which energy project, depending on which is more advantageous. And actually, they're standalone. Your energy credit, 48 energy credit, relates to producing energy. The 48 cap C, which we're going to talk about shortly, that has to do with producing materials, products, devices that are used to generate renewable, generate electricity from renewable power, renewable energy. So
right, here's 48C right here.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, so 48 cap C. So let me get now, the question was, the timing was great. Let's get into it a little bit. Advanced energy projects is key. So a little history here is important, just so you'll understand. Some of you may recall this section 48 cap C. 2009, it was in the ARRA of 2009. This is the Recovery Act. There was originally a $2.3 billion program that was available to help kickstart companies that wanted to manufacture renewable energy products. Okay, solar panel manufacturers, turbines, wind turbine manufacturers and such, microturbines. That's a great example because there's so much still to be done there. I think that's a great example of combining your 48 cap C and your R&D tax credit. Really substantial. And what's great about it is if you are able to generate substantial R&D credits and they consume all or most of your revenue, most of your tax, you can monetize your ITC. You can sell the 48 cap C credits. So these go hand in hand. It's not an if or. It's you can do both on that side. It's the PTC that has to stand alone from the ITCs. All right. So the program originally 2.3 billion. Today it's 10 billion. And the reason there's a dollar amount there is you need to apply for it. Your clients will need to apply for it. It's a fairly straightforward process. You can find the forms on the IRS's website. There's an agreement and there are stated requirements, but essentially it's just that you're going to be using the funds to develop and manufacture devices to be used to produce these certain renewable energy types. And so that is the extent of that. Again, it's 6 to 30%, again, based on whether you're following prevailing wage laws and apprenticeships and such. So it's not that it's an all or nothing. If you're not complying with the jobs requirements, you still get the 6% credit. So it is there and available, but this is again because using taxpayer funding to develop it is by itself in some ways enough, but this bringing jobs into the equation makes this a much more attractive incentive, and that really is the point here. So again, you can also transfer it, sell it. Here's another thing that you can do with all three ITCs, both ITCs and the PTC. If you're a not-for-profit, you can actually file return and you can treat the ITC or the PTC as a tax payment. And so what that means, you can effectively turn that tax payment into a refundable credit. And a not-for-profit, a municipality a local might put together a small microgrid for their community, their business community, and it's a not-for-profit. They can file a tax return and they can get that 30% credit back as a refund, even though it exceeds the tax paid, because it's a refundable refund. That's only for not-for-profits. This does require a 100% basis reduction. It's a little bit different than the energy credit. So that's why if you qualify for both, that one might make, the energy credit might make more sense. It's not going to be common, but it can happen. Then again, a specified credit to offset AMT. Next slide, Barry. So I mentioned that there were substantial changes from the 2009 version to today. So this credit was limited to developers, designers, manufacturers of renewable energy equipment, devices, products. Today, that still is a qualifier. However, now with an emphasis on the environmental impact of some of these toxic materials, for instance, now a company can add recycling of renewable equipment to the equation. So if you're taking back wind turbines that you sold 10 years ago, or solar panels, and you're doing something to process those for recycling, you can get an ITC for setting that operation up. That's important to remember because that did not exist in the old 48 Cap C. Anything, Barry, next slide, category 2. We'll talk about category 2. Here's another more broad category where 48 Cap C initially only was available to a manufacturer, developer, designer of renewable energy production equipment, products and such. Now, any company, if it re-equips their manufacturing plants and facilities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, there's an ability to take an ITC for that as well. Some examples here. So again, it's not so much that we're trying to give you the minutia to take away. It's the idea that this really can help my client. This can make a difference to them. If they're going to spend $500,000 on capturing greenhouse gases or putting in a recycling, a renewable energy product recycling facility, that's something that's real money to them. That's $150,000 real money to them, or such. And so that's how to keep this in mind. This is not just aimed at tax equity investors. This is not just aimed at utility companies, large scale energy, renewable energy producers. This is scaled at businesses. This is the last mile that I mentioned earlier. Getting small, mid-sized businesses now adopting and plugging into the grid. Incredible the opportunities that are ahead of us in the next several years, the next decade anyway. These rules, by the way, run through 2024. They've been extended for many years, and I'm just curious to see how that would look like 2 or 3 years from now. Right now, they mostly kick in starting January 1st. Some of these are extensions, and so they're going to do a bit of a phase in from the prior to the new. But as a rule, this is live. You can start talking to your clients about things. We're happy to get involved, to be participate. If you've got a client with these kinds of questions, they want to learn more, we're happy to do that. Barry, next slide, please. And this is the third category, the final category. And so, again, new to 48 Cap C. If you're involved in re-equipping, expanding, or establishing industrial manufacturing plants to recycle critical materials, this is new. Again, this is energy security. Critical materials would be things like lithium, would be things like precious or rare earth metals, the kind of things that are too valuable to just throw into a trash pile or or to incinerate. This is very important because, again, part of the process of renewables isn't just to create new problems in the environment, but it's to create solutions. I understand that that Tesla is an example. Their battery technology, these are very toxic, lithium based and such, but they've already announced that they're over 90% renewable. They've resolved that. And one of their early technical leads started up his own company. It's in Nevada, Redwood. And what they do is just that. They recycle electric vehicle batteries. So again, great opportunity, didn't exist before. And this is going to be something that, you could literally start a business in the recycling of materials and renewable energy components and equipment as a standalone business and get an ITC for it. So that's really the public policy there has become very evident that how important this is, and something that we want to make available nationally. We want to make this available everywhere. Barry, next slide, please.
Okay.
Okay. Just going to quickly go through this and
Mhm.
touch on,
Yep.
these are those phone calls you're going to get constantly from your clients. They're going to want to know about the clean vehicle credit, the new electric vehicle credit. Well, it is up to $7,500 per vehicle with no volume cap. That's new. But you do have, it does have to be domestically assembled. That's going to be a problem for a little while because we just do not have a lot of that yet. Volkswagen is hurrying to get a plant in Tennessee up and running for this reason. And also, obviously, Tesla is a U.S. manufacturer. Ford, they're simply just not able to keep up with their demand. But that is another great deal of expansion. We've got Lordstown, Rivian, and there are many more to come. And so this is going to be really interesting. If that cannot be achieved, there still is a 3750 credit for components that are domestic, critical minerals, battery components. There are caps, however, on the value or the price of the vehicles. $55,000 for a sedan. I know with electric vehicles, that's not terribly, there's not a lot of room there. Although when you start looking at some of the availables that are coming, Volkswagen, for instance, has one that's well within that. Tesla has in there, Ford also. Here's the thing, $80,000 for trucks and SUVs. As an example, the Ford Mach-E, the Mustang, and the Tesla Model Y, this is the SUV, the mini, the small SUV. Supposedly both of those will qualify for the higher SUV cap. Then you've also got limits on AGI, 150,000 for single, 300,000 for married filing jointly. And then starting in 24, and this is where things are going to get even more interesting, these credits will then be transferable to a dealer. So it makes it hands very clean. Walk into the dealer, you can structure or buy your car online, which seems to be the trend with electric vehicles. And you do your transaction, you get your credit applied, and it's all one-stop shopping. The energy efficiency home improvement credits, very briefly, this is going to increase from a $1,200 lifetime credit to a $1,200 annually credit. That's great. This is things like insulation, new windows. And this is really going to affect people, impact people. It's not going to be the $1,200 lifetime, $1,200 a year. So you're going to hear, these are the kind of questions you're going to have when you're doing taxes. So look at these things during the year and get a handle on. They're not too complex. And these are great things you can share with your clients. And then there's the residential clean energy credit. Installing your own battery solution with maybe some solar panels, you can get you can get a residential clean energy credit for that, 30% credit. Again, that's great stuff. That's going to be attractive. A couple of last ones on the business side. Didn't do these in great detail because the detail I wanted to share was mostly in the PTC and the ITC. But you've got the 45 CAPL, which is energy efficient home credit, retroactive and extended. We've got a team that handles that and the 179 CAP-D, which is a similar companion incentive for commercial buildings. Again, we do seminars, we do webinars on that, and we have a team who handles those. Other renewables, biodiesel, renewable diesel, alternative fuels, clean fuels, production credits, all of that. One quick one I do want to point out, IRC section 45V, credit for production of clean hydrogen. That one's really cool. So here's the thing. Hydrogen, you produce it through electrolysis. You've got to actually make the hydrogen, and then when it's consumed, it breaks down, and its byproduct is water. So it's really incredibly clean. Problem is, you got to use traditionally a fossil fuel to create the hydrogen, but not a lot. So here's the thing: is now we are looking toward, or the industry is looking toward creating hydrogen using renewables. That is going to change things substantially. If you've got a client with fleets, this is something that they would be very interested in because hydrogen is the cleanest and cheapest, especially if you're able to generate it with your own microgrid in your fleet yard. You might have 50 or 100 trucks and you're generating your own fuel. Think about that one. What kind of a game changer that could be for your clients. Then last one, zero emission nuclear power production. What that's about is really to get it so that when choice is made, should we shut down nuclear plants versus coal plants, the decision is going to be a lot easier, where now the nuclear plants are going to get this credit, and the nuclear plants are much more efficient. There are a lot of other things that they have issues with, but think of it this way. Solar energy, it's really nothing more than safe nuclear power. The generator happens to be 93 million miles away, but essentially it's the same thing. It's created from fusion. Barry, that's
Awesome.
all I've got.
Wow, that was a lot, John. So thank you so much. We have 10 minutes left. Randy had computer issues, so I just posted polling question 3 in the chat. I'm talking about it here. If a for-profit company cannot use its general business credit, PTC or ITC, can it be sold or transferred? So John, you want to just give everybody the answer since we're doing this in chat right now?
That's right. That's right. So
Yeah.
sure.
Yes,
So the
it's
questions,
still
the
here.
answers were no, the taxpayer has to carry it forward, can go back 3 years or forward 22 years. I wanted to highlight the fact that those parameters changed for this purpose. In these types of credits, you now have a 3-year carryback and a 22-year carry forward. Those are not numbers you're familiar with. That's different in the ITC, PTC world.
Gotcha.
But the answer there is wrong. The second answer is yes, the taxpayer can sell the general business credit to an unrelated party taxpayer through a market-based system. The answer is yes, that's true. So these aren't use or lose. They're not only having to be carried back or carried forward. And no, you cannot put them on eBay. You have to go through a market system for them. Okay, Barry.
All right, that was it. John, I'm going to have you go through Randy's poll here while I get, slide here while I get poll question 4.
Gladly. Okay,
right.
So bringing this all together, where do we all fit in this ecosystem? We've got CPA firms, financial advisors, talking to their clients, talking to us, learning from industry organizations, government labs, and such, other economic development need resources. So what we're doing is trying to focus this so that you could see this in one diagram. We bring the expertise in the ITC and the PTC world. R&D tax credits, as I mentioned, this area is rife with opportunities for R&D tax credits. Cost segregation goes hand in hand. If there's a retrofit or new construction being done and it's integrating some of this ITC qualified property, there is a great opportunity for a cost seg. You're going to need to do it anyway, because if the idea, for instance, is to sell the credit, part of that incentive to keep that credit market honest is there is a 20% penalty on excess claimed credits. So that's part of the policing, if you will. The other is the market itself is going to control the costs, and how the market does that. There's going to be more due diligence on the front end. So you'll be more involved as an advisor on the front end and involved in this process earlier on. And we can step in and help out on the ITC, PTC, and also the cost seg part as well, because they go hand in hand. And often you'll see a 179 Cap D opportunity if there's a facility that's adopting some of these commercial energy saving materials. Okay, Barry,
right.
Next slide, please.
One more. I do really like the Venn diagram, the Venn diagram, just so again, where are we in the universe? You got the industry, the client, CPA, and tri-merit. So I like that. Here's a good one.
Partners and partners together all the way through. So here's an idea just to give you an example of what it actually looks like. Look at the gray slide and the green slide. This is relatively new, and it's really great news. And again, my family came from the northeastern Pennsylvania coal fields. They were coal miners back, and all of that. So I'm not knocking coal, but I do know it's not as efficient, not as efficient. It's dirty. It's caused a lot of problems. health for miners, just a lot of things, a lot of baggage versus renewables. And so the idea of renewables now eclipsing coal is really a positive, great thing. And this trend, in this trending, renewables are by far the fastest growing piece of the pie, and that is going to do nothing but continue over the next years and decades. Just to throw you out some interesting percentages I saw, it's projected that by 2030, just 8 years from now, that companies and homes are going to be self-generating 46% more energy than they do today. That's in just 8 years. And those are typically going to be renewables. And then another 10 years after that, another 32%. That's an incredible amount of growth. And even though there's this microgrid that I described and the ability to sell up into the grid, that is happening. It's through net metering and such. There are other programs that utility companies are offering and are going to continue to offer. The growth there isn't going to be so great. It's expected to be maybe 4 or 5% in the next 8 years. It's expected to grow from 2030 to 2040 at a rate of 33%. So now, effectively, the distributed generation, decentralized grid will be a reality, expected to be within 18 years. And not only that, it's going to be your little side hustle, selling your energy up into the grid. So Barry, that's it on that slide.
Yep. There's just one slide left. I did launch poll question number 4, and I see a lot of you, Kim, Laura, Joseph, Anthony, thank you for answering. And we'll get to that right after you finish this slide. I'll put the question up. Got 3 minutes left.
Sure. So in the renewable energy ecosystem, this is really helpful to understand, especially if you have clients who are actually building, designing, developing renewable energy products, devices, facilities. This is the life cycle. It starts out as basic science out of our federal national laboratories. When I was doing tech, working with the tech transfer folks, I was working primarily with Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, and also NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab in Colorado. And so learned a lot, saw a lot, and know and understand how essential they are to our ecosystem. In addition, they're accessible. Their websites have more information. They're willing, they have small business outreach programs, people to talk to, mentor with. It's incredible the resources we have in our national laboratories. Universities, I say the same thing. So that's where it all starts, the basic science, the basic research. Then you take that and you create some applied R&D. What can we actually do with this theoretical R&D around renewable energy? Well, we've got this idea. We want to make hydrogen without using fossil fuel. How do we do it? 12 years ago, I was at the NREL Renewable Wind Laboratory in Boulder, Colorado. And I was standing next to what looked like a fuel pump, just a gas station pump, except it pumped hydrogen. And behind that pump was a wind turbine. That wind turbine was producing the energy to make the conversions, the electrolysis to create hydrogen that was coming out of that fuel pump. It was the only one west of the Mississippi River. And it's astounding to see, and this is 12 years ago. This is the applied science that comes out of the basic science. And the next array are the product and process R&D and investments. This is where your clients are. This is the wheelhouse of invention. This is where all of the magic happens to commercialize, make it more efficient, make it profitable, and create a cleaner and better environment for us all. And so, Barry, that's
awesome.
all I've got to say.
Perfect. Yes, and the act also doubled the R&D tax credit for startups if you do the payroll offset. So that fits right in perfectly with this product idea section. So polling question 4, I already put it up. All of you already responded. We got about half a minute left. Are your clients expecting to look into renewables? And we got a mixed bag. We got some yeses and some nos and a lot of maybes. So hopefully everybody, learned something today from the Inflation Reduction Act and enjoyed our content, please reach out to us. Let us know if you have any other questions, or if you're a maybe and you want to look at renewable and tax credits for your clients, let us know. We're happy to help. Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
everyone. Enjoy.